I sent an email to Andrew and Bob, Dad and Singer, this summer, and I was like, hey, I've been reading the scripts, and I think it'd be a cool time. It reminds me of the Matt Damon thing, like McConaughey. I think this would be a good time to take my shirt off. I was like, this would be a cool time to have Sam look different because there's a passage of time, and he's had more important stuff on his plate than shaving. So,
are you not going to give me credit?
Hey, it was a mutual discussion.
No,
it was a mutual discussion.
No, it wasn't. Let me help you remember it.
Jensen called me, he's like, hey man, I tried to have a beard this season, they wouldn't let me. You should try too.
And this is his reaction. Oh yeah, I should totally do that. So I thought, I was like, just as a way to differentiate the character and change we ended up doing Lamb, and I pitched him. I was like, what if I grow out facial hair, we change the outfit, this and that. He's like, well, the problem with that is this, and I don't want to say too much because it might give away a little bit more of the season that we're going to see. So it kind of put the kibosh on any kind of beard growth. So as a good friend, I mentioned it to him, and I said, well, I tried, but I got shut down. So maybe you ought to, because time has passed. You could use the whole grief thing, and then, yeah.
And
you're welcome.
I had thought the same thing. All right, thanks, man.
Was that your first time seeing the premiere?
Yes. What'd you think? So glad I was not in that fight scene. That looks like a hellacious day of filming.
So a lot of y'all know me, and have known me for years.
Although it kind of was in that, because the guy who's been not only a stand-in for me for many years, but also is my stunt double, was the guy that frisked him and shoved him in the back. So he's had Jared in much more compromising positions.
Oh yeah, he's thrown me around many a time. So Jesse, that was one of the more miserable. So Jerry Warnick, who's outrageously talented, and is our set designer, he thought of this like barbecue joint to have this showdown, which is awesome. But it was in July in Vancouver. In July, it's not a hot place, but it was probably 90 degrees outside. 90.
You didn't look like you were sweating at all.
I think I changed shirts. Not a word of a lie.
And there was a fireplace on behind you.
Pit. They wanted to be a barbecue joint, so there was a fire pit that was legitimate and working and on, and you never even really saw it, but they had to put it on. I was really happy. Can you tell?
Jensen, at what point last year did you find out the Michael twist? I want an exact day of the week.
The day before we started filming that episode.
The finale?
When I read it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't read ahead. I don't read ahead because it messes me up. I start thinking and making choices of things that with knowledge that I shouldn't know. And for me, that can alter the performance that I'm giving in this episode. If I already know what's happening 3 episodes from now, then that starts making, subconsciously kind of helping me make decisions, and I don't want that. So I try to hold off as long as I can to read the scripts. I did know about that, I think, a few weeks early, and thought it was a pretty cool idea, and thought that we were going to get to, I thought it was cool because, sweet, season 14, and I'm a totally different character. So,
yeah. So if you don't find out...
I was like, thank God.
If you don't find out these things until you read them, what have been, the scripts over the years that, you will forever remember reading, purely for, did you know Dean was going to become a demon?
Yeah, I do remember that reading that script was what was that, end of season 12? End of season
9.
End of season 7? They go by so fast. I remember reading that script and getting to the end and was like, no. And I'm reading Crowley's long soliloquy. I'm like, no. It's no. Dean's eyes open. They're black. No! Threw the script across the room and was like, oh, but that's going to be awesome.
I remember reading, do you remember reading things where So I remember reading things where I'll read it and say like, okay, well I have to be Sam or you have to be Dean, but the audience is going to freak out. And one of those was that scene. I went in the scene where he wakes up to Callie. I was in the scene where so Jensen's not a small man, for those of you who haven't met him.
Isn't that like the demon that you just fought in that last episode? I have not met that guy. He was fantastic, by the way.
Also named Dean, great guy, friend of Tom Wright's.
Got it.
So he had worked with Tom Wright many years. But they were like, okay, here's the scene. And the scene was written, and every time you read a script, it was like, okay, scene 39. Sam puts a blanket over Dean in his bed. And you're like, okay, easy. And then you get there, and the director's like, okay, well, we want you to put him down, like, you want to carry him and put him down. And you're like, no. Like, it's
special features.
But they are like, okay, well, we want something to cut into, right? So they want you walking in. I'm like, he's a big guy. So you're walking in, and you're like, I don't really know how. And then you stand up, and it's like, this must be really sad. And you're like, I understand my back hurts. But I read the scene where Mark Shepard walks in and kind of wakes him up as a demon, and I was like, man, I'm not part of that scene. They shoot the same day, so for those who haven't been part of television or film production, you usually shoot based on what location you're at. So everything that happened in Dean's room in the season 9 film was all shot in one day. So you shoot
anything that's written in one particular set is usually all of those scenes are shot that day, or
and it could be the first and the last scene in the same day.
Just happened, funny enough, a ton. Yeah, we'll shoot the first episode or the first scene of the episode, and then the next scene we shoot is the final scene of the episode, and we haven't done anything in between. We haven't filmed any of it. So
Jensen's always like, hey, what happens this episode? What are we talking about?
I haven't read it yet. I was planning on reading it tonight.
Jerry, you do read ahead, though, right?
I do.
So how many times have you spoiled something for Jensen?
He doesn't spoil anything. I'm like, really? That? What else happens?
You know what's funny? I think I realized as we were talking today, it's sort of, and who knows? I don't know what your process was before Supernatural when you were on Dawson's and all the other stuff you've done, but I feel like it's almost ironically. I'm trying to pick a joke.
What's the process?
I feel like, where's your process, DJ? I feel like it's almost, who knows what's life and what's art, life is art, but I feel like Dean is Jensen seems to take a very Dean approach. I never worked with Jensen before the show, obviously. We met in the test. But Jensen takes a very Dean approach to the show, and obviously he's amazing. He does a great job, and Dean is a great character. I take a very Sam approach, where I read up and almost get bored with something until I do something. And it's very, I don't know if it was the way you always were, or I think it was probably the way I always was, but it's almost funny how you accidentally imitate your characters, Because I've read, we're doing episode 8 right now of season 14, so episode 295. And I know, and this is my 200th episode. He was yelling at me because I was wearing my loud jacket, but it's Supernatural 200, so I'm teasing it. But
no, it's not. It's Supernatural season 10, and it's not loud at all. It's black.
Fair enough. So I think we take different approaches, but I think it works. I think it works because we sort of it's like a yin yang thing, right? Like I do this, he does that, and I feel, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like sometimes it's worked on set where I've said like, man, we're about to shoot the scene. I've read this a dozen times. I think it would be hilarious if you did that. And he's like, oh, you're right. Or he's like, hey, man, it just occurred to me that you need to do this because of what happened. And like, oh, yeah, you're right. So it's kind of a cool little process to have somebody to watch it back and all that.
Did you request that Sam get the nickname Chief?
Yeah. Request.
It was part of the beard request.
Yeah. And request is an interesting word. It was part of my contract renegotiations. So.
In season 1.
Season 1, yeah. It was like, if we go to 14, I want to be called Chief.
Don't worry. When we get Dean back, that is addressed.
It is. And it actually, I guess that episode ran long, but there is a part where Sam is clearly uncomfortable with it, but editing happens, and we lost that little bit of Sam. Delightful.
What was your favorite moment?
Samantha.
I think Chief is a great nickname. Isn't there like a commercial where they're like, I'm suddenly my father and I know because I start calling everyone Chief or something?
Yeah, it's like insurance or something.
Yeah.
Is this where we hold up like insurance sponsorship?
Right, this is actually all one big ad.
This panel brought to you by.
No, but I am interested because obviously, like, Sam can't enjoy it right now because he's gone, because his brother's gone.
Yeah.
But, like, they've kind of got the dream in a way, I feel like. Just like the ability to be like, we have this situation, you do this, you go get these bullets. I'm like, they've waited, like, I mean, I don't know if they ever really wanted that because they've been fine, but I'm like, this is kind of unbelievable that they have this. I feel like Dean's going to come back and be like, yes, you do this, you go get high. Like, or he's going to be like,
I think it's more like, I don't like everybody all up in my business right now.
It's almost like, I think Dean is almost like finding somebody in the backseat of the Impala. It's like, what are you? Get out of here. I think Sam is more uncomfortable and sort of more, I mean, we'll see what happens. But it's a cool thing to play. The bunker has been so sovereign, you know, to the Winchesters and their close circle of compadres, that it's really interesting to do scenes. It's even interesting on set to film where you're like, why are there 20 people in we call it the crow's nest, the place with the big table. We call it the Middle-Letters crow's nest. And so even as Jared, I get to set and I'm like, fuck are all these people? Who the heck are all these people? But it's neat. It brings a cool, and I think thanks to you guys, it's a neat thing to be able to explore these characters and these locations and these sets for so long, to try new things and see what happens. And I hadn't seen this obviously, so it was neat to see it. And they're like, oh, it kind of works. Yeah.
It's nice to have help sometimes.
Yeah.
It's always good. Okay, in terms of Michael, like I know you've talked about, like you read the pilot and you kind of like felt like you got a sense of who Dean was kind of like immediately. This character has been on a couple episodes, but like nothing super extensive. When you first approach it, did they like give you any sort of like description or guidance, or was it like it's all you go?
I'm glad you asked that. No. And I called Andrew and chatted with him, and he was there. He sent me a note. He's like, hey, listen, man, if you want to talk about Michael and, you know, kind of the direction or any kind of, you know, tonality notes, anything like that, he's like, please reach out. And I reached out, and he's like, yeah, really, man, just whatever you want to do. I'm like, well, that's not giving me any kind of concrete direction here. And he's like, well, you know, I don't know, you saw what Christian was doing, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I need to watch what Christian was doing. He's like, no, I would say just kind of, you know, do your own thing. And I'm like, the one thing that I was actually taking direction from, you've now just taken that away. So I was an island unto myself. And Tom Wright, who directed, who did a fantastic job, they didn't tell him necessarily, they didn't give him a whole lot of direction on like how to, keep, with the scenes or the pace or the tone or anything like that. So, it was a bit of a struggle just trying to find my place there. In fact, the scene with Daniil and I, we knew I was going to embarrass you at some point, right? So this was the first, our first big scene together. I was playing this different character. She was, it was our first kind of like meeting, these two characters meeting, and it was a fairly substantial scene. In fact, I cut it down quite a bit. It was a very long scene. And the problem is it was a night scene, and we were filming this in July. Well, It doesn't get
2 hours.
It doesn't get night in Vancouver until like 10:30 p.m. She had flown up with the kids. Well, it doesn't get
2 hours.
It doesn't get night in Vancouver until like 10:30 p.m. She had flown up with the kids, and we were on essentially the children's schedule. So we're waking up at 7 a.m. We got to that scene, was it about 3 a.m.?
Furthermore, 11, when season, or episode 1, 11 p.m., what I'm trying to say is 11 p.m. is also 1 a.m. Texas time. Because you had just come in for that 2 days. So it's 11 p.m. Vancouver.
Your weather brought to you by Jared Padalecki.
But it's even later, is what I'm saying. Like, 11 p.m. sounds late. It was 1 a.m. Texas time, where Dee and Jensen and the kids are at 1 a.m. time, because we're usually on Texas time.
What time is that?
11 p.m. equals 2. So if you add 2, and it's weird, you go to 12.
I'm done.
Why? You were talking about filming with your wife. It was going to be lovely.
It was late. There you go. It was 3 a.m. and it was late. There you go. I'm done. Yes, plus whatever.
I was trying to go back in my head, but there were too many episodes of like, can you guys count the number of episodes where you haven't shared a scene? Like, how long has it been since you haven't shared a scene in an episode?
I think that was the first.
Do you think that's the first
Was
one?
it the first?
No.
Then what else? Season 12?
Season 10.
The whole entire episode? Yeah, we're saying we didn't have a single scene at that episode. I believe that's the first time.
No, season 12, episode
Even
1.
like the end, when you went to the future being with Castiel.
What was
I
that?
think we've always at least-
Season 12?
That was season 4.
Okay.
Close. I think it was the first time. Can somebody...
Season 12, episode 1.
When Sam's kidnapped by the British men of letters.
But we still had scenes together.
Not in season 12, episode 1.
So the first episode of season 10.
And
This is only the second time. Like, is
No.
that weird? Is that wonderful? So weird.
But in Texas, it's season 8.
Central time. Yeah, so I guess second time and
Third.
80
Third.
episodes. No kidding.
Third.
But I feel like still, I think you were directing. It was certainly different than the last 14 seasons or 13 seasons we've started together. To go like, hey, going to Vancouver, whatever. He's like, cool, how's it going? How is everybody? It's like, hey, I'm not going to see you, because usually when even I guess the episodes we didn't do when you were Dean, I think you were directing, or you were at least there, because you were doing stuff. This was unique, because he almost had a chunk of time off, and I went back to Vancouver, and I was like, I don't know what to do. It was strange. I was like, I don't know who to
My friend's not here. I look funny.
I have this awesome painter, but no one showed off to.
Oh, I have to ask you, because I wasn't there. Yes, I have a question for you. In the maybe it was your final scene in this, when you're there with the thing on your eye.
Yeah.
That may be my favorite part of this episode, and I'm going to tell you why. There was nothing on your face. And then Castiel comes and sits down, and it's just like hamburger meat. And he doesn't even blush. And he's got blood streaming down his face. And
Dude, he's an angel.
And meanwhile, you're like, and there's no marks on your face. And I know, can I take a guess?
Yeah.
If they give you the option of, hey, you think you maybe feel a little bruising, maybe a little cut, maybe some blood, he and I are both like, no.
I will say this though, every now and again.
Misha hasn't figured that out, that you can just say no, and you can just play it like this. But when someone's sitting across from you, who looks like he just went through like a meat grinder. I don't know that this works.
He looks like that. He looks like that before makeup.
And then he goes into Jack's room, and Jack's all bloodied up and beat up, and he's just angry.
Paper cut the entire time. It is funny. Every now and again, so there was a scene many years ago with Zachariah, where Dean and where Zachariah breaks my legs, and so Bob Senior directed it, and Bob, who we both adore, we all adore. He won't print when we're messing around. Like, for whatever reason, he's old school. So if we're like making jokes, he's like, cut. Like, I'll just kind of yell cut and move on. But there was written in the scene, like, hey, Zachariah magically breaks Sam's legs, and I'm sitting in the corner with broken legs, and I don't have any lines for like 3 pages.
And you're off camera.
And I'm off camera, but I was like, what am I supposed to do? And there was a camera on me, so I was like, But when the scene was finally cut together, it's nothing. Zachariah's like snaps, and my legs break, and I'm sort of like, ugh. And then the argument's written these days where it's like, Sam, pops hhis finger and can't breathe. You're like Sam's died and been back to life, and I don't know. You kind of we're talking monkeys, right? So we do what they write on the page.
Okay, so the episode ends with Michael finding his army, his teammates, in vampires. How do they gel? I feel like he thinks he's made a good choice, but that's going to backfire.
Well, it's let's just say it starts with vampires. And Michael's a fairly crafty character, and he doesn't just want to have followers and these basic vampires. He wants to fire them up a bit, and he wants them to win. So he's essentially going to create a super army. Which is so great, right? So yeah, all of the lore and all of the dad's journal and all the research is going to pretty much get challenged and become a moot point for season 14. Which I don't know if that's a spoiler alert, but get ready.
I never thought I'd hear you use the word basic to describe, but that's great.
Just your basic vampire.
Run of the mill.
Your run of the mill Twilight.
Standard stock.
I believe that's substandard.
Oh,
Whatever. It was 20 years ago. Is it 20 years ago?
So is Sam going to be working with Joe moving forward?
I don't know. Davina, you tell me. What's your schedule look like? I think Sam, as has been made clear from this episode we all just watched, I think Sam is willing to try any route.
Except for shaving.
But clearly, what do you mean as you should? $100%. I want her to keep it. Sam's going to do whatever he can. Answer all phone calls. That was the idea behind the aesthetic difference. Was more like Sam's busy doing other things. So we'll see how he ends up finally getting freshly shorn. But you did the eyebrow thing.
This one. Is there a period of the Winchesters' life? Like, we've had various levels of flashbacks over the years, from like kids to teens to whatever. But is there a period of their life you still would love to see? Like, if you got to do like a flashback?
Oh, wow. God, yes. I mean, I
think we've gotten to see little bits and pieces of it. Like. When they show those flashbacks of the young Winchester brothers, and Sam's in the motel room watching TV, and young Dean goes down the hall to get a soda out of the vending machine, and I love watching that because it does kind of breathe a little life into those years.